It's been real quiet for the Chicago Bulls, but over the last couple of days, it's been more proof that free agency isn't over. As Mark Stein reports that the Chicago Bulls could be late suitors for Ben Mathurin, a restricted free agent who's been unable to find a new deal with his current team, the Los Angeles Clippers. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, the rumors that the Bulls are keeping an eye out for Jalen Duren in 2027 next summer, especially if he takes that qualifying offer. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means. Plus, trade rumors for Jalen Smith, and the Chicago Bulls preseason schedule has been released for 2026. We're going to talk about all that, plus more, right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And hey, the Bulls have been linked to Ben Mathurin. I think that's where we're going to start this off at. This is an interesting case point, right? Because reportedly, according to Mark Stein, the Bulls have now gained some interest. Them and the Pelicans and some other teams are interested in being suitors for Ben Mathurin here because him and the Clippers have not reached a new deal yet. Now, there's a couple of different avenues and ways that this can go. I want to be clear here. It could require an offer sheet, which the Bulls can only offer basically their full mid-level exception at $9.9 million unless they create some space by trading off someone else, right, and sending him off to another team, which could that be the Jalen Smith or something like that? We'll talk about that, right? They can do a sign and trade, which is the Bulls and the Clippers working out a deal to where, they sign him to a deal, but to facilitate it because the Bulls don't have the open cap space, it means that the Bulls will be sending a player back, to the Los Angeles Clippers, and then the Bulls will be able to get Ben Mathurin in that run. Or this could just be the Chicago Bulls just gaining some intel, and it's leaked to Mark Stein, which is still the part of it, right? Now, here's the thing, right? A offer sheet, it seems like the Clippers would match any offer sheet that the Bulls could sign Ben Mathurin to. And yes, we do have a large trade exception, but we can't use that trade except, well, no, we actually had to forgo and waive our trade exceptions to operate as an under the cap team. So we don't even have that part of it, right? So it'll be for the Bulls, mid-level exception that they do have, and they don't have the full, mid-level exception. They have the non-taxpayers mid-level exception at I'm sure Von's going to correct me in the comment section, 9.9-ish million, I think is what it is. The sign and trade route does open up the Bulls for more things. And I know what Bulls fans are going to say. Well, can we send them Patrick Williams? Probably not, right? I doubt they're going to want to take back unless we're sending like a bunch of second-round picks or a heavily protected first-round pick. That's probably the only way you're going to get them to take Patrick Williams back. Now, I will say this. If they are able to include it, that $18 million would be a really good base to be able to get Patrick Williams in that. But keep in mind, in a sign and trade, only half the base level compensation counts towards towards the actual matching of the salary. So you have that part of it. I mean, when you really look at this Bulls team, I don't know anybody else that they like. Even I know people are going to say, well, can we send Noah Essengay? It's not going to get you enough money, right? Even Dailyn Swain as a rookie, not going to get you enough money to match that deal. So I think that's the part that you have to look at it in. Again, I'm not going deep into the cap weeds of exactly all the machinations and things that could happen in regards to that. I'll let Von do that in the comment section because he loves being able to sound off on cap stuff. But let's talk about who Ben Mathurin is as a player. Ben Mathurin is a 24-year-old player that would fit the Bulls' kind of new timeline that they set. He wouldn't have to start here, which keep in mind, in his career, he started less than half the games. He's played 263 games. He started 110. So I don't know if having him come off the bench would be something that he would be adverse to. Of course, he's going to want to try to prove himself, especially on a young team, but he'd be able to play behind Norman Powell, right? So you have that part of it in. And this is a guy that, for what it's worth, he's averaged 16 points per game for his career, 44% shooting, 33% from shooting from three as well. He averages almost 5 rebounds per game, 2 assists, 1.9 turnovers, right? And he would have to do even less ball handling here. And so Mathurin is an interesting prospect, right? I'm not saying that Mathurin is necessarily your two guard of the future. He could be, right? And, Tiago Splitter's shown a good ability to develop. I do think that if the Bulls were to go after Ben Mathurin even semi-aggressively at this point in the offseason, it would just mean that they aren't confident in what they have behind, Norman Powell at the 2 guard. And for what it's worth, they shouldn't be. Dailyn Swain hasn't shown anything yet. I'm still not out on Dailyn overall. But then you have Isaac Okoro as well. Now, that's another player. Isaac Okoro is an expiring contract. Could you send Isaac Okoro in the sign and trade? And then, at still only 26 years old, could the Clippers do that? Like, the Clippers are in a weird space with their roster anyway. They have some players that you can look at. They can move at the trade deadline. They should be going younger. So, then you have that part of it. So I think that, the Bulls' interest in Ben Mathurin is cool, right? You're not paying him a max level deal at this point or anything like that. And so, like, the question then becomes really about, do the Bulls want to spend assets and future flexibility right now to get Ben Mathurin? He's interesting because he isn't necessarily a win-now name. Now, he is ready to contribute right now. He's young enough to be part of the Bulls' next timeline if he works out. And the fit with Josh Giddey could be battling. I like more of a defender next to Josh Giddey, but, Ben Mathurin being able to thrive off what Josh Giddey does creation-wise, yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all, right? He'd give them another young wing that fits more in with Modest and Caleb Wilson, right? So then you have, young players at the 1, 2, 3, and 4, which, all kind of overlap within like 3-4 years of each other, which I don't mind in regards to that one. He knows how to attack the rim. He knows he's not afraid of drawing contact. He can create offense in a way by himself also, which in that second unit with him and Trey Jones, maybe you have that in regards to it. And Chicago needs players that can put pressure on defenses and players that can still score. We still have a shooting and scoring deficit. Now, I'd say this, Ben Mathurin isn't not at the point of his career where I feel super confident in him, but he has had seasons of shooting 37% from 3. His second year in the league, he averaged 3.6 threes per game, shot at 37%. In 2025-26, he took 5.6 three-pointers per game, hit that at a 37% clip. Now, he took a dip last year, with the Clippers, which brought down the overall percentage last year because he only shot 20% with the Clippers last year in 25-26. So that brought his season percentage down to 31%. But he's shown some flashes of maybe being able to develop as a three-point shooter. And if that's there, and if they feel like the fit is there, then it's good. Now, this is very complicated. Restricted free agency is complicated in of itself, right? You may have to overpay if you're going to try to do an offer sheet for them not to match it. But if you do the sign and trade and stuff like that, maybe you can be perfectly fine in that regard. And maybe then you're looking at your long-term wings being Dailyn Swain and Ben Mathurin if Dailyn Swain works out. And I like the complementary styles that they offer, and Dailyn Swain being more defensively gifted while still providing some offense, and Ben Mathurin being more offensively gifted while still providing a little bit of defense. He's shown flashes of that as well. So, the question, there's not a question of Ben Mathurin can help the Bulls rebuild. The question is the cost that it could take to get him, if it helps the Chicago Bulls with where they are right now, or if it pushes in too much of it. And you be probably weighing Ben Mathurin versus some 2027 cap flexibility, which I think you have to take account into as well, because he's going to eat into some of that cap space that you have in 2027, which we'll get a little bit more in on a second. So let me know what you guys think about that part down below, man. Interesting prospect in Ben Mathurin. Like I said, I don't hate it for what it's worth. I'm not necessarily looking at it and saying, bam, if we get Ben Mathurin, our shooting guard woes are solved for the future. I'm not saying that, but it could be, right? Like, Ben Mathurin's a guy that has shown those flashes, right? But Indiana didn't believe in it for a reason. The Clippers aren't re-signing him for a reason. So, I'm not just putting all my eggs in that basket, but it is something to take a look at. But reportedly as well, the Bulls could be suitors for both Peyton Watson and Jalen Duren in the summer of 2027 if these guys both or one of them take the qualifying offer, right? Now, I want to talk about the talking points of what each one of these guys could potentially offer the Chicago Bulls and why it could make some sense, right? I like the Jalen Duren part of it a little bit more. I know Bulls fans are going to be like, but the playoffs, he had terrible playoffs. Listen, he was an all-NBA player. He's probably destined to be an all-star. And I think when you look at it overall, like, Jalen Duren is the bigger star bet in this. Right now, the Bulls do have a possibility of creating cap space next year. And I think that's what I want to start off with before we get into the players themselves, because I know naturally a lot of people are going to ask, well, hey, are the Bulls even going to have cap space to do this, right? The Bulls right now project to have about $142 million in committed salary in 2027-28 if all the options, the rookie options and the veteran options are picked up, right? And I think right now the projected, and this could change, the projected cap next season is $174 million in that. So that will leave about $32 million in raw cap space, and that's before you do make any decisions on your options. You can create further cap space by turning down the team option on Tre Jones, turning down the team option on Zach Collins. Those are each $8 million over. That's another $16 million. So that can put you from having, roughly $32 million in cap space to having almost $50 million in cap space, right? So that leaves you room to go after Jalen Duren if you want 25, 28 million and still space to still fill out the rest of your roster. So the Bulls have an option to have cap space. If they need even more, they have the option to go off of Norman Powell's contract and get them another $22 million in cap space. So I wanted to bring that up because the Bulls are projected to have cap space, and that's even without them picking up or without them declining the options. They can pick up options on Norman Powell, Zach Collins, and Tre Jones and still go after Jalen Duren and offer him $32 million. So you have that part of it, right? So there you go. If you have that, now you have to make some decisions in some other places. That means you're probably not picking up Leonard Miller, stuff like that. But the Bulls creating cap space is not a problem. So I say all that to say next offseason, it's not a problem. Now, if you sign Ben Mathurin to a big deal this offseason, you eat into a little bit of that. And then, yes, you do have to decline some of those options to create more space. So there's that part of it, right? But let's talk about it. I do think that Jalen Duren is clearly the bigger star bet here, right? When you look at him, at 22 years old, he averages 19.5 points per game, 10.5 rebounds, 2 assists, while shooting 65% from the field. That is what you want from a center. Yes, he's not the more modern mobile centers that's going to do all the switching and stuff like that, but that's why you put switchers all over the court elsewhere, right? If you have a lineup to where your 2, your 3, and your 4 are switchable defenders, and your one in Josh Giddey and your 5 in Jalen Duren aren't, you can work with that. Now, Jalen Duren also is no slouch defensively. He patrols that paint really good, and so you're not at the place right now to where, you're at a loss defensively because it's not like he's a bad defensive player. No, he's a really good defensive player. He's not doing a lot of the switching in regards to that, right? And also, he's not a huge shot blocker, right? He's averaged right at a block per game for his career, 0.9. We're going to round that up to a block per game. So he's averaged that for his career. So he can do a little bit of that. But I think what you look at is rim protecting for Jalen Duren isn't and I've always said this, the only version of rim protection isn't shot blocking, right? You can be a rim protector and not block a lot of shots because it's about the defense and how you keep people away from the paint and make it uncomfortable for them to get to the rim. Jalen Duren is really good into that one. A Jalen Duren, Josh Giddey pick and roll could become the foundation of a Bulls offense because then that opens up short roll passing, that opens up cutting for Modest and Caleb Wilson, floating out. You can run a double screen, those type of things. Like, it opens up a lot of that. The lob finishing, the setting the tough screens, Jalen Duren does all that. He finishes through contact really well. And I think the free throw pressure, right? You're going to do that in regards to that a little bit too. Like, Jalen Duren is a career 71% free throw shooter. Not great, but again, not to where people are going to hack him a lot either, right? So you have that part of it. I think that Jalen Duren will be a huge swing for the Bulls. And I know that it's going to be a lot. We're going to talk about the concerns. Playoffs are going to stand out a lot in that. He would solve so much of the Bulls' physicality concerns as well. He fits Tiago Splitter's emphasis on rebounding and putting pressure on the paint. And as well, he could become a truly foundational piece with this team. So then you'd be looking at Giddey, Modest, Caleb, Swain, Jalen Duren in regards to that one, right? You'd be looking at that part of it. And so he also brings some veteranship even at only being 22 years old because he's been in the league now going into 5 years. So I like the prospect of taking a bet on Jalen Duren. Now, I will say this as well. It can become complicated because you still got Nic Claxton in that. Now, I would say for 1 year, you got Nic Claxton 1 year next season. If you do sign Jalen Duren in the summer of 27 and you still have Nic Claxton, to me, you can then remove the option of Zach Collins. You have Jalen Duren and Nic Claxton as your starting and your backup center. I think that's perfectly fine. They both are defensive-minded, those type of things. I do think that, though, in signing Jalen Duren, it does mean that you're allowing some players to walk away, right? That can become very expensive for you. Spacing also could be a little bit more difficult in regards to that, but spacing is already a problem, so I don't think we're creating a new problem. We're just kind of doubling down on one that we need and would put even more emphasis for us to have shooting. Caleb Wilson shooting would have to be legit. Minus Buzelis' shooting would have to be legit. We'd have to find another shooter even behind Norman Powell when he eventually leaves, and Josh Giddey's shooting would have to be legit. Otherwise, the spacing can become a bit of a concern, and we saw a little bit of that with the Detroit Pistons as well. That's why they went out and added John Collins. So if Caleb Wilson's three-point shooting is legit next to a player like Jalen Duren, then we could be fine in regards to that one. And the thing alluded to is that he could require close to max money. And if that's the thing, that's where you get. Now, we can afford it, but you got to look at the cost of what that means for other players in regards to that too, right? And then, of course, the postseason production. That is one of the biggest things that people are worried about for him. Is that and what happens in the postseason. And he's a young player, 22 years old. I like to lean on the side that he can still learn in the postseason, but I'm not going to act like anybody's crazy for that being a huge concern for him either. Now, the Peyton Watson part of this, right? Peyton Watson was somebody that I was interested in the Bulls going after before we had Caleb Wilson, because I think that Peyton Watson is better at the 3 than at the 2. You put him at the 2, I think you're relying on him to be a 3-and-D wing, to shoot a lot. Like, he did shoot 41% from 3, so there's some signs of that. I compared it to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, I do think that Peyton Watson has a higher ceiling than Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but Bryson Graham went out there and got Nickeil when he was viewed as a 3-and-D player, and then he ended up being able to turn into a 20-point-per-game scorer and played off Jalen Johnson really well. And maybe you're hoping that that same type of thing happens with Peyton Watson, that he has a more clean fit. Defensively, he fits next to Josh Giddey really well. You like length, you like shooting, you like switchability. What did I just say? If you have Peyton Watson, Modest Buzelis, and Caleb Wilson as your 2, your 3, and your 4, the switchability on the defensive side of the ball becomes near elite in the NBA, because Peyton can guard 3 positions. Modest can guard multiple positions. Caleb Wilson can develop into being somebody who can guard 4 positions, right? So in regards to that, when it would open up so much defensively for the Chicago Bulls, Peyton Watson guards. He does guards, wings, and forwards. That's what he can defend. So you look in that, he also is a player that does thrive in running in transition. They don't even do a lot of transition in Denver. That could open up even more for his game there as well. And I do think that he helps protect Josh Giddey in the starting lineup defensively. We saw how Denver's defense dropped off when he's there. The offensive role, is it scalable, right? That's what you're asking for him. He wasn't asked to do a lot in Denver, but he averaged 14 points per game without being the first or second option. And hey, that fits in what the Bulls mold is going to be as well. And I do think that Peyton Watson fits the way that Tiago Splitter likes to play basketball also, right? So it comes down to, if you think that Peyton Watson can be a long-term starting 2 guard, you probably love this. If you're like me, you have some concerns about him being a long-term starting 2 guard, it brings a little trepidation with it, but we'll see. Again, I'm not mad if the Bulls do pursue. Now, Jalen, Duren, Peyton Watson seems like it's more towards if they take the qualifying offer and they're unrestricted free agents in 2027. It's a possibility. I think that as we see it, it's becoming more and more of a possibility as well with the way that teams are now handling restricted free agency. And we got to see what's going to happen in regards to that. That Bulls can create the cap space. That's not really a problem to pursue one of these guys. Even if they do go after Ben Mathurin now this offseason, they still can create enough space to go after Jalen Duren then in the next offseason, so to say. So, I'm not mad. Like, the Bulls, again, this is why I was so big on the optionality that the Bulls did create with what they decided to do and not attaching themselves to long-term money this offseason, because it left them a lot of flexibility in what they want to do still. And now we just got to see how Bryson Graham takes advantage of that, because I'm excited to see it, right? Jalen Duren would be the bigger swing. Peyton Watson would be cleaner build than Ben Mathurin. But Ben Mathurin could be something that the Bulls look at and say, hey, he's available now. His team doesn't want him. Why not take the shot at it? And I don't think anybody's going to be mad if that ends up being the case either. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think down below. Hearing these 3 names could be all names the Bulls could be interested in. Which one intrigues you the most? Which one would you like to see the Bulls completely stay away from? Let me know what you guys think on that part down below. But that was not the only thing that we got, right? We also got yesterday that the Los Angeles Lakers may have an interest in Jalen Smith, right? Now, I don't know how this plays into all the other things in regards to that one. I think Smith has a really good role on this team. But, Pat asked me a question on Locked on Bulls yesterday, and it was before we really knew about this, is that could Leonard Miller replace what you expect to get from Jalen Smith? And if the Bulls feel confident in that, they can move Jalen and try to stack whatever assets they are right now. Now, I don't know what you're going to get back for Jalen, because they're going to have to send some salary back. And do not talk to me about Dalton Connect. I do not want him on this team at all. I don't trust it. That's probably what it ended up being, again, because no long-term money and stuff like that. So it really comes down to the opportunity that presents itself, right? And so if the Lakers come calling for Jalen Smith legitimately and they have that interest in him, the Bulls should listen to it, right? I'm not saying that they should not listen to it. But I think overall, too, is just like, keep in mind what you can actually get back, right? Now, in this, the report came from Wokey, who said this. Smith has become fans inside the Lakers. He did mention that the $9.4 million salary could be too rich for the front office's blood, but let's not forget that it's an expiring deal, which would make adding him to the books, all the more interesting for our already expensive Lakers roster. Still only 26 years old and coming off one of the best seasons of his career, it wouldn't be hard to understand why the Bulls want to keep him. Smith fits relatively well with Bryson Graham's slap model, offering length and good mobility. Is he the strongest and the most coordinated big man? No, but he plays with an incredible high motor and is fresh off shooting 37% from downtown. So, I mean, this is one of those things where it's like it's some registered interest. Don't know if like how hard the Lakers are pursuing this. It just seems like it's more of one of those things that a writer looked at the situation and said, hey, this is somebody the Lakers could be interested in. They've already kind of mentioned his name. So we'll see. I do think that them signing Mamu, it probably means like you would want him and Jalen to kind of operate in similar roles, but maybe they do want that redundancy in regards to that one. So we'll see. Overall, though, the Lakers just don't have a lot that they can offer, right? It would have to be somebody like Dalton Knecht or Jaden Hardy. Not both, one of those guys. And here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan on Dalton Knecht. I love Jaden Hardy in that draft that he was in, but he really hasn't done anything else. But it would be the Bulls maybe taking a shot on another set of young players and seeing what they can develop into. Okay. I mean, again, it's so much speculative stuff around it. I can't really have a hard line, take on it, but we'll see what ends up happening in regards to it. Last topic before we get up out of here, the Chicago Bulls dropped their preseason schedule, and man, it's going to be a fun preseason. The Bulls start off their preseason against the Phoenix Suns on October 7th. That's a game that's going to be going on at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're starting off on the road against the Phoenix Suns. Sorry, no, we're starting off at home in Chicago against the Phoenix Suns. Let me correct myself on that one. And then also game 2 is against the Memphis Grizzlies, which means Cam Boozer versus Caleb Wilson Part 2. That's October 9th. That's also at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then we go out on the road against the Denver Nuggets on October 11th, and then the Milwaukee Bucks October 14th. And then we wrap up our preseason at the Minnesota Timberwolves on October 16th, and then get ready for the season. So, that's a nice game. That's over, 9 games, 5 games over 9 days. Man, we're getting right back to it right away. I love all these teams because all these teams are interesting. Of course, the Memphis Grizzlies, you have the Cam Boozer thing there. The Denver Nuggets are going to be a championship contending team. The Milwaukee Bucks are rebuilding, right? So you have that part of it. Then the Minnesota Timberwolves and Phoenix Suns are both tough playoff teams in the Western Conference as well. I think that it says a lot that the Bulls are only facing off against one Eastern Conference team in the preseason as well. So take that for whatever you mean in regards to that one. So I think it's a good set of preseason games. A nice 5 games to kind of get your whistle wet, and then we'll see what the regular season brings for the Chicago Bulls. But that's going to do it for today's episode, man. Let me know what you guys think on all the topics down below. Ben Mathurin, Peyton Watson, Jalen Duren, which one of those guys interests you the most? Do you think the Bulls should trade Jalen Smith if they come calling? All they can offer is Dalton Knecht or Jaden Ivey. And then lastly, the Bulls preseason. How excited are you for the preseason this year and getting to see the first of this whole team together, as well as more of Caleb Wilson? Let me know that part down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of Break